Hey, thanks for joining us with our reschedule. We did reschedule for a really awesome reason, and that is that we, this morning, you should see the blog post that the 0.2 release is out. So everyone say, yay! Yay! Look, you get applause when you come in the room.
All right.
So we were just telling everyone that, the release is out, blog post. By all means, check out the blog post for the full details and links to documents and all of that good stuff. Do you guys want to highlight anything big about this one, or Lynn, anyone want to say anything? Other than just read the blog post.
We have lots of stuff.
Yeah.
Sorry, I just walked in. I was trying to switch power. What do we want to highlight? So I think the key big things in here, STO is now Kubernetes wide, not just a single namespace. I think that's huge. That's probably one of the biggest. There's lots of little improvements everywhere. The other big thing is we're ready for adapter authors to start jumping in and writing adapters. I think we have a guide published now too. Yes, we have a guide published on how to do that. So we're sort of welcoming people in the community to start playing around with that, building adapters, getting involved that way. What are the other things you want to highlight?
TCP support.
Oh yeah, TCP support, that was big too. So yeah, that was another big request from some of the people in the community, was that we should support more than just HTTP. So now any TCP traffic, we can produce metrics and do some basic quality enforcement and stuff like that.
And an automatic sidecar injection.
And if you are running Kubernetes alpha features, you can enable automatic sidecar injection. You can also enable configuration validation for STO.
And there's an API. Okay. Well, there just used to be a config file in Zero.
Oh yeah, there's actually an API for using using Kubernetes CRDs. Yes. Which, do we publish that part?
Thanks for the tweets, everyone.
Yeah.
We're getting all sorts of tweets now, congratulating us.
And you can extend the mesh with VMs outside of Kubernetes. And also, you can run with early version of console and Eureka, so not just Kubernetes.
Yeah, so lots of great stuff. Check out the blog post for the full details, and then if you've got questions and everything after you've had a chance to play around, we'll have a call next week as well. So the next announcement we had was Nick Chase was going to talk about some cool blogging stuff. Nick, you want to take it over?
Okay. Hey, so basically, what I did was I went through the part of the docs. I haven't been through all of them yet, and generated some ideas for potential blog posts to kind of educate people on topics that are related to Istio. And what I'd like to do, and I talked to April about this, is what we'd like to do is get blogs prepared from anybody who is interested in doing that. And this is a way that people can participate even if they don't, if they don't have the chops to actually code Istio. They can write about, okay, here's how you do this, or, here's what I'm doing with that, that sort of thing. And what I've done is I've kind of put together a temporary list. I don't know where the best place to put this is, but for now, I'm just going to drop in the chat sort of the first stab at a list of potential pieces to just give people an idea of the kinds of things that I'm talking about. Obviously, it's not limited to that. And I would be more than willing to help out in any way, and that could be just editing an article that somebody has written, or if there are developers or anybody else who feels like, oh, I think this is a topic that we definitely should talk about, but I'm not a good writer or whatever. I mean, I'm willing to help in terms of if you've got an idea that you think would make a good blog, schedule an hour with me, explain it to me, and I'll write it if you want. It doesn't matter who does it. The point is what we want to do is get as much content out there, as much information out there that's going to be useful to people that we want to be using the project as possible. So that's my shtick.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks, Nick, for leading that effort. I think it's going to be a great opportunity. Like Nick mentioned, if you haven't yet fully engaged in with the community, but you are wanting to, but just aren't really sure of an easy way to do it, blogging is a great way to contribute, share your knowledge, and help others get engaged with the project. So absolutely take a look at the list, add your own topic, and do sign up for a blog post. We would host them on the STO blog, and then they can be cross-posted wherever. Could be you're a global superstar one day for STO. Who knows? No promises though. But would love to get a lot of involvement from everyone there. Blog posts are a great way to they can lead into a conference talk and things like that. So definitely do check it out. And it's really awesome, Nick. Thank you for your offer to help people with some of the editorial aspects, because that's never fun. So.
It's my pleasure.
All right, so the next thing we had was project status updates, which again, we made a big status update earlier, but Laurent, you wanted to talk about environment.
Yeah, I was trying to find the document because I forgot what I wrote in the agenda. So we are very busy doing 0.2. So an update about what we're shipping. So we're shipping the way to add VMs or external services, external hardware to your mesh, to your Kubernetes mesh. In 0.3, we're gonna harden all this and extend it to more than one, maybe 0.4, more than one cluster. Right now, it's one Kubernetes cluster where the control plane is running, and then the VMs are external to the cluster. We're going to support more than one. I wanted to ask actually the community about their favorite development environment, whether we should try to invest more support in native macOS development if people are using Macs, like us, or if they are using Linux boxes, and how important is that for people as a development environment.
Are you sending
us in the doc?
People to comment?
Yeah, so I don't know how we can do that, send a survey and then see, but I'm wondering also, well, show events might be hard to do with this, but if people feel strongly about developing natively on the Mac, or they don't care and having Minikube and Docker is fine. That was one of the questions I had. So I guess we'll send a survey about that.
Well, we're getting some comments in the chat. Linux, Mac and Linux.
Yeah, Basil 0.6, it just happened that 0.6 got released just as we were finishing our 0.2, so we did not want to change the whole tool chain right in the middle of our last stretch of release. So we're gonna fix it soon. As soon as now master is open to 0.3, so we're gonna fix it now. They changed some stuff that makes it compatible with 0.5 for us.
Model Linux.
Linux, okay. I mean, Linux works obviously, right? Because this is this is where we're building. This is where we're the whole continuous integration is running on Linux, and we're deploying on Docker, which is based on Linux.
Cool. And then you also wanted to talk about London.
Oh yeah, just as a random note, I'll be in London on Thursday the 19th. So if any one of you is around in London on the 19th of October, there's a Kubernetes user group meeting. We can probably post the link at some point. And I'll be talking about But Istio obviously, and then making a demo about extending the mesh with VMs.
Yeah, so if you're in London, definitely check that out. It's been tweeted from our Istio Twitter, and then also, if you haven't seen it yet, and I can share the link again, but we've got a master community calendar with all, basically it's anywhere you can find Istio in the world. So I highly recommend subscribing to that calendar, adding it to your own cal so that you will always know what cool Istio stuff is happening, and you can add your own stuff. We can absolutely, share information about events that way.
My name is Ron Dimeli.
I'll shoot over the email. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay,
since we're on that topic, I want to also mention at DockerCon, I believe it's next week, we are also doing a Istio social mixer with Stanberg and Zach from Google, who's going to be speaking about Istio. So if you're going to DockerCon, if you're in Copenhagen, that will be a good social mixer for Istio to go to.
If you happen to be in Copenhagen. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's a lot of Istio-related events that are, happening over October and November. And then, of course, we have in December, I know a lot of them will be at KubeCon, so that's going to be a big one as well. But there's a lot of stuff happening over the next couple of months, so definitely check out that list and get involved where you can. Okay, technical deep dive. I don't know who's going to take over the screen, Spike or Lyndon?
I don't think Lemon is on, so I will take over.
Okay.
All right. Can people see this?
Yeah.
All right, awesome. So this is a design that was proposed and kind of recently reviewed. I wanted to just give a quick overview for the community so people kind of know what's coming down the pike in terms of STO authorization policy. So right now there are plans for two different kind of out-of-the-box authorization plugins for Mixer. One is to use Open Policy Agent, and the other is this one, which is role-based access control. Basically, the idea is to provide a sort of batteries-included access control plugin for Istio that you can use to kind of get started with providing access control to services that are in the mesh. And it is modeled after the Kubernetes RBAC, but is slightly different because we're not just protecting the Kubernetes API, but basically any HTTP API that you're protecting with Istio. So the idea is that we will create Istio role and Istio role binding custom resources, which will then be monitored by the adapter. And the Istio role includes a list of permissions, basically defining what somebody or some entity that has that role can do. And an example of that would be something like this, where it operates in some particular namespace and then gives you access to basically anything going on the details service, any HTTP gets or head requests on the reviews service, on the product service, get and head only to specific paths in the API. And then once you have defined a role, you bind that role to specific subjects, either by name or group, and those come out of Istio's authentication document. Or sorry, authentication systems. So via either an envoy looking at the HTTPS certificates, or via a plugin upstream in Mixer that identifies like Kubernetes style information about the services. You get authentication to find out who is making the call, and then you bind these to the Istio roles. So any questions about how that works? All right. So this will integrate with Mixer through a template. So this is the new Mixer template system that was released in Istio 0.2. So the template will contain two things, the subject and the action. I'm getting a lot of background noise from somebody on the line. I'm not sure who, sort of beeping. Ah, much better. Okay, so subject and action. The subject is what is matched in the role binding, and the action is what is matched in the role's specification of permissions. And each of them include basically a place where operators can store arbitrary extra data that they want to use to identify the subject. So additional claims that they get from some authentication token in the subject would be one example, or actions if they want to mark up what services are being used, or what versions of the service are being used. They can feed those attributes into the action and then use those in policy selectors. And then this integrates with the rest of Mixer in the standard way. So to actually create an instance of this, you fill out the template in a constructor and actually pass in what Mixer attributes you want to use for these different fields. All right. Any questions about that? All right, that's all I have about Istio native RBAC. We are targeting to try and get this in for 0.3, but it's currently marked as a P1, which means that we won't block the release if this is not ready. So it's not the highest priority for 0.3, but the goal is that it'll be ready for then.
Awesome, thank you, Spike.
Yep.
Should we mention what the highest priorities are for DLC? To segue into that.
Yeah.
So if people haven't seen the extremely limited roadmap we have, the most important things on 0.3, or actually the focus talk is the other thing that some people in the community may or may not have seen. But I sort of moved some of it into the Istio roadmap on the website. But basically, our priorities are all around getting this production ready, so having it so we feel comfortable with people everywhere using Istio sort of in anger in production use cases, and not sort of with lots of caveats saying, you might not want to try that. So there's all the roadmap items pretty much are based around that goal. So things like better testing, better release process, more often release processes, better debugging, better tracing, HA for Istio, monitoring for Istio, so all this kind of stuff that you need to actually make it production ready is our big focus. And we're trying to get all that done sort of as quickly as we can, and hopefully have a release much quicker than the delta between .1 and .2, which was like 5 months. So we don't want to take 5 months for each release. We're hoping to be a lot quicker on the next one.
Are you willing to claim a number of months, or just less than 5?
Every week.
Well, so to get all of the things that we labeled as P0 done, I think our goal is like 3 months. Before the end of the year would be great. If that's not possible, then obviously we slip, but that's sort of the goal right now. The problem is, as probably everyone knows, the last quarter of the year tends to be shorter than people think it is because everyone's on vacation and holidays and all this other stuff. So it's kind of like 1.5 working months instead of 3. So we'll see. But that's the goal, is to get it. We'd love to be able to announce something at KubeCon about 0.3 being sort of production ready and when it will come out. So maybe we can have a better date at KubeCon.
So we have a question. Can you talk about the goals/prerequisite for production ready feature set?
So the goal is production ready, so I don't know what the question about the goal means, but the prerequisite or the feature set is the stuff that's in the roadmap and the stuff in the focus talk. But it's so testing. So testing includes both the basic unit tests we have, that's great, but more importantly, lots of end-to-end tests, integration tests, tests showing the system working, performance tests, load tests, scalability tests, right? All this kind of stuff that goes into showing like, okay, how does STO scale when you have 1,000 services? What about 10,000? How many mixers do you need? How many valves do you need? Right? How does Envoy scale? So all this different kind of stuff. So scaling is a big part of that, and sort of documentation of the scaling expectations for STO and sort of how you should go about scaling it. Ideally, also auto scaling. I think that's on the list, but maybe not at least here maybe one. There's some of the other interesting stuff around sort of production ready is that STO can be sort of disabled easily in the sense of like if you wrote some, let's say, RBAC policies using some of the stuff that Spike and Min are working on, and suddenly everything starts breaking, that there's a really easy way to quickly turn it off. Maybe it's just turned off so it's just logging what it would do and not actually enforcing it. We haven't quite worked out the details there, but things like that are sort of in scope 4.3 to making sure that people can adopt this and sort of the SRE type professionals who are operating services would feel comfortable using this because it has all the features they need to be able to run a real production service. Hopefully that answers the question.
I just have a question. Where's the writing adapters, guys?
Just about the
Sweet. We're on it. All right. So, oh, actually, I guess Stefan linked it for us. So thank you.
I'll leave you to it.
Sorry. And then we have Isaiah, who wanted to do a demo.
Yeah, hi, can you hear me all right?
Yeah, we hear you.
Good. So I'm Isaiah from IBM, mainly contributed to Pilot. I'm going to show a quick demo here. Just let me start sharing my screen. Right, does that seem to be working?
Yep.
Okay. So I'm going to show a quick demo of Eureka, using Eureka as the registry inside of Istio. And we're going to be doing this in Docker, using Docker Compose, just because it's a very simple, straightforward orchestration environment where we can show the setup. So we'll start up on the quick start in Docker. Pretty much the same setup to start with. Just grab the latest Istio from out there and set up your path. Then the command to actually start up the Istio control plane is just Docker Compose -f install Eureka Istio YAML. So I'll show you what that YAML looks like. So big things to notice here is we have Istio Pilot. We've configured it to listen to a Eureka registry by talking to this URL. And we have a Eureka image. This is just standard Netflix OSS Eureka out there. And then just for simplicity, what we're doing here is we're taking advantage of the registrator image. And basically all this does is it looks at the Docker registry and it registers everything that's in the Docker registry with Eureka. So basically it just copies it over and makes it easier to do this particular demo.
When you say Docker registry, you mean like every running container?
Yeah, every running container, and then it actually looks at the environment variables here. So we're going to go to this in a second. It looks at the environment variables, and then it registers based on this service name environment variable. So it'll register as details and with these tags, for instance. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I was just making sure because Docker registry is like a particular other thing as well.
Yes, you're correct. So the other thing to note here is that we have a STO API server. This is basically where we store all the rules. And since we're not running Kubernetes, we're running a Docker, we need to start it up. It's just this image, which is Kube API server, and we're just using it as a component. That has a etcd backend, so we started that as well. And then we start up Zipkin for tracing support. So I'm going to actually spin this up. So just a docker compose -f install Eureka STO up -d.
And you're unmuted.
Hey, was there a mixer in there, or is this running without mixer?
This is running without mixer currently. That will be added in as well in the future, I believe. So there's nothing that prevents it from working. It's just we haven't added it in yet. So.
And is authentication enabled, or would that be another additional one later too?
Authentication is not enabled. That would be future work as well. I would need to look into how some of the authorization stuff works. So we spun everything up. All looks healthy. So I'm gonna just jump ahead to demonstrating the book info example. I'm sure you guys have all seen this quite a few times, but basically it's just a simple bookstore where various components are different microservices, different versions, and we can dynamically configure it with STO. The most important thing is the product page to get reviews of a particular book. It talks to the reviews service, and there's 3 different versions of this. Only difference between them is the first one doesn't show any stars, the second one shows black stars, and the third one shows red stars. So to stand up the Docker, the book info example, it's just another Docker compose -f and book info samples, Eureka up -d. Right, and that spun everything up. So now, actually, I'll go ahead and show the book info YAML here, because there's a couple things to note about it. So like I mentioned earlier, we do have these environment variables for each of these apps, which is a service name tag, and that's written by the registrator, just so that it knows what to register that particular app with inside of Eureka. And then the other thing to note is we are using network aliases, and that's just because we want to be able to refer to the, say, there's 3 different versions of this review service, but we want to be able to refer to it by just reviews instead of reviews v2, v1, etc. So we have this network alias for reviews. So now that that's all spun up, we should be able to, 1 second. Should be able to see it here. Since we don't have any rules right now, it's just doing basically round robin between those different versions of the reviews service because there's nothing telling STO how to route that traffic. And I'll go through and add a rule to make it so that version 1 of all the services is shown instead. So to do that, we use STO control to create samples, Eureka, book info, Eureka, and then there's all these route rules. I'll apply it and then I'll show you the contents. So this one is just going to route everything to version 1, cat it. So these are pretty much the same as what you'd see in Kubernetes. The main difference right now is that the destination service is product page instead of product page dot whatever it is, that SVC, that cluster local. And otherwise it's the same. So now that these have taken effect, see no review or no stars on any of the reviews. And then we can do one more rule, which is to make it so that there's a lot of feedback coming back. Can you mute the conference room, please? So we can add one more rule so that the user JSON is routed to v3 instead of the normal routing. So let me see, I think it's this one. Can cat that? Nope. Okay, yeah, here it is. Sorry about that. So yeah, we can add this routing rule with higher precedence that basically says if we see one of the cookie header with a content matching user equal JSON, then we will route to version 2 instead. And again, this is exactly the same as the rule would be for Kubernetes, except for the host name is slightly different. So I'm going to go ahead and apply that. Right. And then that should take effect within a couple seconds. So still v1 for everything here. Login is JSON. And we see version 2 of the review service, which is the black stars. So that's pretty much all I had to show. Basically just demonstrating that we can do the same things with Eureka, using Eureka registry in Istio. And pretty much most of the docs you can follow, and the main difference is you're going to be using the stuff inside of samples, book info, Eureka instead of Kube or console. I think that's pretty much it. Any questions on that?
Are there any plans to build mixer adapters that extract like metadata about services and things like that, like we do for Kubernetes when the requests come in?
So that should be, I believe that would be picked up automatically, just because we have deployed those. The envoy is deployed on each of the apps, and so that would be collected automatically.
Yeah, but
if Mixer is added.
In the current implementation, as far as I'm aware, Envoy creates some UID which it sends to Mixer, and then Mixer is talking to the Kube API server to turn that UID into information like what service it is and what the service account and things like that are.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not as knowledgeable on the Mixer side of things, but it is.
Okay.
Yeah, so the general answer to that question is yes, we will be creating Mixer adapters that get that information from the environment. and perhaps even specifically that one. I mean, there are no actual plans for that particular one, but generally, yes, we want to create all of those.
Any other questions? Okay, great. Thanks, Isaiah, for the demo.
Cool, thanks.
All right, so that's all we had on the agenda for today. So we've got about 20 minutes left. Does anybody have any general questions that they want to pose to the team, or anyone here have anything to share? Or do you want 20 minutes back?
Well, we're all really excited that 0.2 is out.
You can see. Everyone's so excited that they're
We're going to go take
falling asleep.
Well, you know, it has been a lot, so it would be a well-deserved nap. Yeah.
I would just like to say that if anybody has any other ideas for content, please go ahead and add them to that list. That list is not like the be-all and end-all. It's just sort of a starting point.
All right, if there's no other questions, then we'll give you 20 minutes to go play with 0.2 and read all the docs and, you know, all the exciting stuff.
That might take more than 20 minutes.
Hopefully.
All right, well, if you do have any questions or anything that comes up as you start diving into it, by all means, reach out via the group. And then again, we will look back next week on another call.
Yes.
Thanks, everybody, for joining today.
Thanks, everyone.